In 1967, a man declared an old sea fort in the North Sea to be its own independent country. He created a flag, a national anthem, a constitution, and even declared himself the prince of this new country. Today, this country still exists, has its own passports, its own currency, and its own royal family. But most countries in the world don't recognize it as a real nation. This is the story of Sealand, the country that doesn't officially exist, but kind of does. To understand Sealand, you have to go back to World War II. During the war, the British built several sea forts in the North Sea to defend against German aircraft and ships. These forts were built on large concrete platforms and were located several miles off the coast of England. Soldiers lived on these platforms and used them as military bases to protect shipping routes and major cities. After the war ended, many of these sea forts were abandoned and left empty in the ocean. One of these forts was called Ruff's Tower. It was located about 7 miles off the coast of England and sat in international waters, just outside the area controlled by the British government at the time. For years, the platform just sat there, empty and rusting in the sea. Then in the 1960s, something unusual happened. At the time, pirate radio stations were becoming popular in Europe. These were radio stations that broadcast music and shows from ships or offshore platforms to avoid government regulations and licensing fees. Since they were outside of the country's borders, they were harder for governments to shut down. A British man named Roy Bates, who had previously run a pirate radio station, became interested in Ruff's Tower. In 1967, he and his family moved onto the abandoned sea fort and claimed it as their own. But Roy Bates didn't just move onto the platform. He declared it an independent country. He called this new country the Principality of Sealand, and he declared himself Prince Roy and his wife Princess Joan. First, this sounded like a joke. But Roy Bates was serious. He created a flag for Sealand, wrote a constitution, created Sealand passports, and even minted Sealand coins. He argued that because the platform was in international waters, it was not part of the United Kingdom, and therefore he had the right to claim it as a new country. Then something happened that made the situation even stranger. In 1968, a British work crew approached Ruff's Tower to perform maintenance on a nearby buoy. Roy Bates fired warning shots into the air to scare them away, claiming they were entering his country without permission. The British government charged him with illegal possession of a firearm and summoned him to court. But when the case went to court, the judge ruled that Ruff's Tower was outside of British territorial waters, and therefore the British courts did not have jurisdiction over what happened there. Roy Bates took this as proof that Sealand was its own independent country. Over the next several years, Sealand became more than just a platform in the ocean. The Bates family continued to develop the idea of Sealand as a real country. They issued passports, stamps, coins, and even sold noble titles like Lord and Baron to people around the world. But the strangest event in Sealand's history happened in 1978. A group of German and Dutch businessmen who had been involved with Sealand wanted to take control of the platform. While Roy Bates was away, the group hired mercenaries and staged a takeover of Sealand. They arrived by boat and helicopter, took control of the platform, and took Roy Bates' son, who had been staying there, hostage. When Roy Bates heard about this, he gathered a group of friends, armed themselves, and flew to Sealand by helicopter to take it back. They successfully retook the platform and captured the men who had tried to take over. Roy Bates then declared that the men were prisoners of war for invading Sealand. One of the men who had been captured was a German citizen, and according to the Bates family, a German diplomat later traveled to Sealand to negotiate his release. The Bates family claimed that this was proof that Germany had unofficially recognized Sealand as a country by negotiating with them. Whether that counts as real recognition is still debated, but the story only added to Sealand's legend. Over the years, Sealand continued to operate as a kind of unofficial country. It has a flag, a motto, a constitution, passports, and a royal family. People can even buy noble titles from Sealand, such as Lord or Lady of Sealand. But Sealand has never been officially recognized as a sovereign nation by the major countries of the world. So why isn't Sealand considered a real country? There are a few reasons. To be widely recognized as a country, a place usually needs a permanent population, defined territory, a government, and the ability to interact with other countries. Sealand has some of these things, but not all of them in a way that most governments accept. Also, after Sealand was founded, the United Kingdom extended its territorial waters from 3 miles to 12 miles, which brought Ruff's Tower back into British-controlled waters. However, the British government has mostly ignored Sealand rather than trying to remove the Bates family from the platform. Today, Sealand is still occupied by the Bates family, and it remains one of the strangest political stories in the world. It is a place that looks like a small rusted platform in the ocean, but its residents consider it a sovereign country. Sealand shows that the idea of a country is sometimes more complicated than just land and borders. It raises strange questions about what it really means to be a nation, who gets to decide what a country is, and whether a single family on an old sea fort can declare their own country and make it real. Sealand is not recognized by most of the world. It has a population of only a few people, and it sits on a World War II platform in the middle of the sea. But it has a flag, a government, a national anthem, and a royal family. And depending on who you ask, Sealand might be the smallest country in the world. Or it might just be the world's most successful micronation. Either way, it's one of the strangest country stories in modern history. And it all started with an abandoned sea fort, a pirate radio operator, and a man who decided to declare himself a prince.